Hey everybody, just to give you an idea of what's going on down here. I know you haven't seen much of us lately and we missed you too. This is a 8.8 Explorer rear end that we're doing for Mike Fleming's 68 Mustang, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Basically, if you want a bulletproof rear end and you want to kind of do it on a budget, this is going to be the way to go. It's 8.8 out of a 01 Ford Explorer, 373 posi disc brake with integrated emergency brake. So this is your all-in-one unit that we've put in several early Mustangs, some early A bodies. You have to cut them down, relocate your spring perches. But right now what we're doing is just getting ready to new seals, new bearings. You can put it in your car however you want to put it in your car, but we're going to redo everything because we don't want it to break. And then this over here is just some of the stuff that goes with it. You have to, as you can see here, we cut it down about 3 inches. I'm not sure the exact measurement. We cut it down, re-welded tube, use 2 passenger side axles on it. Throw away your driver's side axle and just use 2 passenger sides. Then it's exactly the right width for a Mustang. Factory wheel spit. It's just a really good setup. We're doing new rotors, brake pads, 2 new calipers, emergency brake pads, the axle, sandblast and paint everything. So we're building the rear end for his car. It's a little bit less expensive than, you know, trying to find something, you know, short of a Curry or a Mosier or something like that. This is just a really good alternative. Then this motor over here, this is the 302 out of Fred and Becky's car. It did run good, but it was tons of overspray on it from when the guy tried to paint the car with the motor in it. It did have a couple of oil leaks that were evident, so we resealed it, checked the rods and main bearings, and put it back together. So we didn't have to do anything to this engine, and that's okay if you're just going to detail it up and put it back in the car. Don't take a crappy old engine that's knocking and whatever and paint it and do an aerosol overhaul and try and tell everybody it's a new motor. This is not a new motor, but it was fairly new compared to the 50-year-old age of the car. So we just detailed it and we're putting it back in the car. Same with the transmission. The transmission's fine on it. Just had to clean it up. Just got to clean it up and put it away. And now come out here. All right, this is Mike Fleming's 68 Mustang. We are finally at a point where I can wet sand this car. So basically what we're doing is the car's been all blocked out. It's a 400 grit wet sand and paper on a, it's a stiff pad, but it's also a little forgiving. So we're going to go over the car with 400, and then I'm probably going to do it also in 600. And then we seal it and paint it and clear it, and then start to sand it again in 3 or 4 different grits of paper to polish the car, to buff it out and polish it. So just so you know, if you're going to get into doing body work on a car, you're going to be sanding it a lot. You know, Matt's over here working on a Jeep fender. This stuff takes a lot of time, and the reason why is because this is basically what you got to do. You don't want it to necessarily dry on there. Keep it wet. But you literally have to go over the car in very small, and you've got to get every square centimeter of it. That's why it's hard to cut somebody loose on wet sanding that hasn't wet sanded before, because if I'm in there painting and the car's been all wet sanded and that's all well and good, and I go over it with paint and you can see a 220 or 320 scratch in it. Well, that's not what we're going to do here. It's going to be smooth, or it's just going to stay in primer forever. One of the two, but we'll get them done. But we finally got some decent weather here. Today's the last day of decent weather, and surprise, we have a tornado warning for tomorrow. So we're going to try and get a bunch of stuff wet sanded. That way when we do snap warm again, I'm ready to paint just a parade of stuff going in and out of the paint booth. So we're going to have a bunch of stuff painted here very shortly for you. Let me get my phone. Had to block yet another spam phone caller. We have cut way down on that. We don't get a ton of spam calls anymore, but they are out there. But anyway, this is Mike's car. We're going to get this wet sanded. I'm going to put a coat of sealer on it, some paint, some clear. Then we're going to start wet sanding it to buff it. Once that's done, I'll paint the dash. The dash is a matte black, and then we're going to use Kill Matte. I did get called out. Somebody called me out. If you're going to use Kill Matte, don't call it Dynamatte. Whatever. It's sound deadening stuff. Not really looking for a sound deadener for a sponsor. So whatever. It's tar with tinfoil on it. But it works real good. I've done it in my truck, and just the difference, you wouldn't think it makes a huge difference, but it does. It makes a huge difference. The Ranger truck, the 72 Ranger truck, we got that truck all done, drove it all over the place, and everything was fine. Yesterday, a customer came to pick it up, drove it again, and it apparently with that new fuel pump on there, it's got a little more sucking pressure. I don't know what you call sucking pressure. Vacuum, suction, whatever. It sucks some rust out of the fuel tank. We had kind of anticipated that, but a fuel tank's $350. So, you know, if it didn't need it, we didn't want to do it. Didn't want to have to charge him for a fuel tank if it didn't need it. I know some of you get upset about, oh, you should build that into your quote and do this and do that. Yeah, I should build a paint job into the quote too, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to charge the customer anything he doesn't need to be charged, and I'm not going to do anything to the car that the customer doesn't want done to the car. That's the difference between us and another shop, is we're not here to just upsell the daylights out of everybody. Yeah, it's nice to make money. It's nice to pay the rent. It's nice to pay the bills, the guys, the utilities, all that kind of stuff. But I'm also not here to beat people up on the cost of getting a car done. We're trying to show you that it can be done. Yes, it's expensive. There's no doubt about it. Anybody that tries to sugarcoat that is lying. It's expensive. But we're trying to show you that it's also not $100,000 to restore a $30,000 car. The Riviera that I have over here, the 71 Riviera that I have had literally forever. We took the motor out of that a while back, and Cindy's 67 Coronet, we took the motor out of that and sent them off to a local machine shop who has just kind of been dragging their feet, and we had a come to Jesus the other day on the phone. All of a sudden my stuff's getting done, so we're going to have some motors here pretty soon. We'll have the video of putting that 455 back in that Riviera with a Holly Sniper. We've got the Holly Sniper to do to the Super B. We've got the Holly Sniper to do to my truck. So there's going to be a lot of cool video on that stuff. So Matt's going nuts, wet sanding on the Jeep fender. We've got to get this Jeep painted too, but we just, you know, between weather and temperature and whatnot, we just, this time of year, it's tough for us to do that. But come on in here. I don't know if I showed you yet, but I may have. Eating pretzels. Pretzels are good. Anyway, we've got Dynamatte, Matte 66, Kill Matte, whatever you want to call it, in this truck. And we also found these little cool pieces right here. This truck doesn't really have, the carpet just kind of ends here. So you either got to put piping on it or edging or something. But we found these neat little pieces. We're going to powder coat these. These are going to go right here and cover the edge of that that carpet once the carpet's in there. So it'll give it more of a finished look, and you're not going to drag your foot across it getting in all the time. So a lot of trick stuff going on with that. Got the 5th wheel hitch for it. Excuse me, gooseneck. I know I'll get called out on that. And that's about it for now. You know, we're getting stuff done, and hopefully we can show you what's happening. I know it gets a little boring, and we've missed several days of videos, but there are things that go on that just probably aren't that exciting for you. So I'll update you unless we got something to show you, but I'll do a little time-lapse hero wet sand in this Mustang now so you can get an idea of the amount of time it takes to do that. It is literally body prep. Once you're done with the Bodywork, your work is really only beginning, because you put a bunch of high build primer on it. It's got to be blocked out with a couple different grades of sandpaper dry. Then you got to move on to wet sanding it. Then you got to wash the car, make sure it's clean, make sure it's dry. So once it's wet sanded, it's going to have to sit for a couple days just to dry out. I'm probably going to roll it in the booth, turn the fan on. That'll help evaporate some of the water off the car, and then we'll finally get to painting that one. So the paint's in-house, we've got that. Rear end's being built, the Stig's working on front end components. So once it's painted and buffed, we can start assembling that car, put it on the ground as a roller. The motor's already been done for it. We did that a long time ago. I've got an AOD. That's one of the things that we're going to be waiting for. I've got automatic overdrive that's got to go out and be rebuilt, because that hasn't been done yet. That's it. So we'll set this up for time lapse, and I'll start wet sanding on this car.